Hi everyone, welcome back to Earl Grey Books. I'm Ellie and today I am doing my March wrap up. So we're going to get into it. I'm going to talk a little bit about my usual sort of stats, how many books I read, how many books were this half of the month, and where my TBR is standing and whatnot, and then we will go into the books, which are over here, as you can see. So, in total in March, I read 19 books. 12 of those were in this half, and I completely credit Bookathon for that, because I absolutely would not have made it through most of these books if not for that. I did not stay up for the whole 48 hours, but I did do a really good amount of reading, and huge thanks to Mel from A Book Fiend named Mel, who was my readathon buddy, and kept checking in. So it was great. Could not have done it without Mel. Okay, so into the TBR. At the start of the month, I had 200 books. On that TBR, I did drop down to 199. I think I made it down to 196 even at one point. And then I had 23 books arrive throughout the month. A whole lot of those were Agatha Christie books that I had ordered through my best friend. So, yes. And some of them were like uni things and things like that. So I'm not too stressed about that, even though I was technically on a book buying ban. Let's not talk about that. I also unhauled 13 books, which I think is a pretty good number. I didn't really think that I had that many more books that I wanted to unhaul. But yeah, there were a couple that I started reading and didn't like and that sort of thing. So I guess you always find books, don't you? And then I ended the month with 204 on my TBR. So still a little bit higher, unfortunately higher than I was at the start of the month. But also, I did kind of at the end of the month, things happened and I just wasn't reading as much, and that sort of thing. But I still think I did pretty well, and yes, I'm going to get that number down again in April, and then ruin it in May, and then bring it back in June. But onto the books. So let's get into the 12 that I read. A lot of these I read as ebooks for different things. So I started this half of the month off with A Lonely Girl is a Dangerous Thing by Jessie 2, which I actually DNF'd. This was on the Stella Prize long list for 2021. I was reading it as part of the Stella Project long list blitz, which is a book club that I co-host, and this is kind of our event around the long list time. I just thought this was pretentious and boring, and I hated every single character, and there's just a lot of stuff in here. There is a lot of sex as well, and like very like frank sex stuff, and like I read historical romance, so like I love me a good bit of smut, but it's that kind of just like offhand comments that I was just like, I don't want to read this. So I didn't. This was only a library ebook, so that's fine. I think I didn't haul it, so I don't feel too bad about DNFing it. And then I moved on to a historical romance. This is An Unexpected Earl by Anna Harrington. This is the second book in the Lords of Armoury series. I was so excited about this one. This one just got released in end of Feb, I think. That sounds about right. Yeah. I didn't really like this. I loved the first book, but this one was just kind of missing something. I can't even remember what happened in this book. I don't know if that's because like my health has been messing up with my memory lately, or whether it really just wasn't that memorable. I just feel like the main characters were missing that spark and that interest that was in the first book. I will continue with this series. I think there's 2 more books in it. I think one comes out in September, so I'll give that one a go, and if I still don't like it, then I guess I'll call the series and say I'm done with it. But yes, then I did some rereading as well, and this is Northern Lights by Philip Pullman. I already talked about the fact that I reread this. This is my 3rd time rereading this. One of my favourite books, one of my favourite series. Gave this one 4.5 stars. I'm sure you all know what it's about. And I've mentioned that I was rereading this to watch the show and to continue with the prequel series. I'm sure you're all sick of hearing me talk about my plans there. So yes, still loved this. Can't believe how much of it I'd forgotten. Like, I thought I had a good grasp on this, but clearly not. Okay, a library book. This is Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado, or Mercado. Yeah, this is short stories. I loved this. So I loved Machado's book In the Dream House, which is a non-fiction book about her experience in a same-sex, abusive, toxic relationship, and that was beautiful and one of my favorite books of last year. And this was still just completely gorgeous. Not as good, but I think that's just because I struggle with short stories. So I loved this though. It's so creepy and just like perfect. If you like things like Rebecca and like Mexican Gothic and things like that, I think that you would really enjoy this one as well. Okay, and then I read Rebel by Beverly Jenkins. And this was, Northern Lights was like the very end, was the start of Bookathon. So these next couple were kind of in a pretty short period of time. So I didn't like Rebel either. I know a lot of people are obsessed with Beverly Jenkins right now. Like, she's kind of a buzz author at the moment. This is historical romance. This is post Civil War, I think. I just kind of felt like maybe it could have done with like another round of edits. It just felt very, I don't really know how to put it, but it felt very like she did this and then he did this, so she did this. And I just that kind of writing just gets on my nerves. So I gave this one 3 stars and I didn't like it. I have one other book from Beverly Jenkins that I'd bought as an ebook ages ago in a different series. I cannot remember which one it is, but I'm gonna give that one a go maybe towards the end of the year and see whether I like it or whether Beverly Jenkins just isn't for me. I can see why people like her. I don't think she's a bad author, but I just really struggled. Okay, speaking of books I struggled with, I read The Case of the Missing Marquess, which is book 1 in the Enola Holmes series by Nancy Springer. This movie, the Netflix movie from last year, is probably one of my favourite movies that I've seen in a really long time. It's just like a comfort movie for me, and it just makes me really happy. I just think it's kind of sweet, and I like that kind of like kitschy Miss Marple amateur detective sort of thing. And I felt like there was a world of difference between the book and the movie. the movie has a charm to it, and Enola has a charm to her in the movie, and I just didn't see it in this. Maybe partly as well because I didn't realise this until I rewatched the movie after reading this. But in here she's 13 or 12, and in the movie she's 16, and I think that kind of makes a difference because she can be a little bit more worldly. She's very naive and innocent because she's, you know, just been living with her mother for all this time, and not really interacting with the outside world, but there's still a little bit more to her, and things seem a little bit more realistic that she could get away with as a 16-year-old. So yeah, I won't be continuing this series, but if they do make any more movies, I will be continuing to watch those. Next up, I had an art book. I decided to count this one as read because I spent a lot of time reading this, so it was going on there. And that was In Wonderland by Eileen Susan Fort. This is a book about women surrealists in the US and in Mexico, and it was really, really fascinating. I had originally borrowed this in like July of last year from my uni library to do an assignment about Remedios Vero, who is a artist that I really enjoy, who is a surrealist artist who was based in Mexico for a lot of her life, or at least a lot of her artist life. And yeah, I really enjoyed this whole thing. It was a very interesting look into the movement, especially as it is kind of a movement that is very misogynistic, and you know, a lot of people think of Salvador Dali and the creator of the movement, Andre Breton, when they think of the movement, and I don't really care about any of those. So I really liked learning about all these women, and I have a whole list of them that I'm going to look further into. And of course it talks a lot about Frida Kahlo, and I love Frida Kahlo, so very happy with that one. Next up is Revenge by S.L. Lim. This was another book that was part of the Stella Prize. This one was shortlisted. It's also, I believe, the first instance of a non-binary author being longlisted for the Stella while they were identifying as non-binary. I believe that Alan Van Niven, who has been nominated before, now identifies as non-binary but didn't at the time. So huge thing. This is it kind of sounds like it would be a thriller, but it's more of like a character study. I think that this is a really interesting book, and I think that it was very well done and well carried off, but it wasn't for me. I gave this one 3 stars. That's just not my sort of thing, so I just don't feel that I could appreciate it as much as someone else who reads more of that sort of thing, enjoys that thing, would. Still on the Stella, because I had to fly through a couple, and I read The Wandering by Itan Paramaditha. So this is a really cool book. This is like choose your own adventure, but like for adults. So we all start at the same place, and then you get told what page to read to, and there's a really cool thing in the back. I thought it was in the back. Have I missed it? Nope. Here we go. Where you can actually, you can't see that. You can actually, there are spaces to write down the different threads that you've passed through. The one that I read was maybe about 50 pages. It was quite a short one, and maybe not the most interesting story, but I gave this one 4 stars because I think it's an incredible premise for a book, and I think that it was very well carried off. I just made bad choices. So this one is a library one, but I think maybe when this is out in paperback, if it comes out in paperback, that I will purchase it and go through and read a few more of the stories, and hopefully pick out some different things. Okay, next up we have Half Woman, Half Grief by Maya Kalaria. I talked about this one quite a lot recently. I hauled it recently, and also it was in my poetry collection video, and I decided to read it because I needed something short and quick, and I really like this. This is beautiful. This is about grief, and I took photos of a lot of the poems and sent them to my friends to be like, oof, I feel this one. So really beautiful collection, highly recommend. And then second to last book, I reread Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. Finally, I'd been putting this one off because I wanted to reread this one, the entire trilogy, the Six of Crows duology, and maybe King of Scars before the series, which I guess by the time this video is up is out in a couple of days. So yes, I wanted to reread them all. I don't think that's going to happen anymore, but we're going to try. I gave this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. Again, just like whoosh, the things that I did not remember at all. But yeah, I really enjoyed revisiting this world. That's really all I have to say about it. I'll talk more about it once I've finished the series, I think. I don't really know. That's everything that I read in the second half of March. I'm going to wrap this video up because it's already quite long, but I will see you all next time. I'm doing my extra videos, so you will see me on the 18th, and I can't remember what day that is. But I will have my Eurovision-a-thon TBR up, I believe. So I will see you then. Bye.